Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and Battle Partners has been out in Japan for about a month now, which is going to be making up the bulk of our Journey Together set here internationally. And today I want to take a look at the objectively most played cards from the set. This is looking at data from Luminous tournaments, and this is just the amount of times that the cards have been played in a deck that has been recorded within the City League tournaments, which are 64 player tournaments, and this is the top 16 within them. Honestly, it doesn't matter exactly how many times a card's been played, but I will give you at least some numbers and some ballpark numbers for some of the cards. And it's really interesting to look at the numbers, as I think they give you a pretty good idea of how good a card is. Again, not perfect, and I have my own opinions on the cards, and I will talk about those separately in a little bit here. And obviously, I'm gonna break down why these cards are so highly played. But being more played can just mean a card's object is like better, or it could mean that it is like a meta call, or people are just interested in playing those cards. This is one thing as well. Cards that are mediocre get lots of play that people find cool because they're fun. And so that is the trainers Pokemon. To be honest, all the trainers Pokemon have been decently played. I've heard some people say that the trainers Pokemon are really disappointing and bad. And I mean, if you look at the data, they're not that bad. They're fine. I mean, it depends exactly how good you thought they were going to be. If you thought they were going to like completely dominate the metagame, then they're not. I haven't really heard too many people say that. But they're not, and we'll take a look. And then there are also some cards in the expansion Journey Together that we're not going to be looking at today. Those are the cards. I actually don't know the full set list, like off the top of my head. I believe all the cards in Battle Partners are included, and that's what we'll be taking a look at. This is the Trainers Pokemon, and also a bunch of non-Trainers Pokemon, and a bunch of different things here. It's mostly Trainers Pokemon, though. And then there are Pokemon like Blaziken EX, which is a card that I've talked about actually a lot on the channel. It's been out in Japan a while. That's like the reason why it's not included here. It has not been played that many times in Japan. Like, I guess it's, something that is worth talking about, but also not something that is super impactful, and it's been again out in Japan longer, so it's not exactly fair to compare them. Although you can see that most of them have been played since Battle Partners came out, because Mamoswine EX came out of Battle Partners, and that was a partner for, or is a partner for Blaziken EX. Also, this card's rotating sooner. These are mostly I regulation marks, but Blaziken EX isn't, as well as the Lillian, which in my opinion is a pretty good card, or it's like a pretty solid card, increasing damage by grass and fire Pokemon. I don't think it's amazing, but I think it's pretty good. Or I think it's decent. There aren't really any amazing grass Pokemon or fire Pokemon. We can see this played here within Festival Lead. Again, not that much, and these are actually a lot of these are before, or some of them are before rotation and before battle partners, so I do keep that in mind. But it doubles the damage increase, and that's why it's played here. But I think it is fine in other cards, or with other cards in other decks. But anyways, the cards actually from Battle Partners, which we have data on, and the most played card by a wide margin is Lillie's Clefairy EX. This card has been played in 460 decks in Japan at the time of collecting the data. And Lily's Pearl is the second card with 206. So most of the decks playing Lillie's Clefairy EX are not playing Lillie's Pearl, as in like over 50% are not, but still, a good chunk are. A little bit under half. I've talked about this card a lot. There are two aspects to it. There's the attack and there's the ability. The ability is useful in any deck this card's been played that any deck this card has been played in, which says that the weakness of each of your opponent's dragon Pokemon in play is now Psychic. Alongside Dragon's the best type in Japan, and post rotation by I'd say by a wide margin. Certainly there are other good types. It's not like you're going to see Dragon all the time, but Dragon's really good. And Liz Clefairy EX allows you to take down those Dragon Pokemon, either through its attack or some other attack. So if, we'll take a look at the list it's in, but you have Full Moon Rado as well with your attack here. This does 20 more for each, 20 more damage for each bench Pokemon built yours and your opponents. It can be played with arrows or other depths to boost the damage. It's an okay attacker, otherwise it's not super good. Its HP is its HP is low, but then you do have the tool card here, Lily's Pearl, which says when it's attached, and the Pokemon it's attached to, the Lily's Pokemon it's attached to is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, that player takes one for your prize card. I've talked about this card a bunch as well. And Lily's Clefairy EX plus Lily's Pearl creates one of the just best attackers in the game. There are ways to get around this. This also applies, if you didn't know, to the tool card, Luxurious Cape, and some other ones as well. Luxurious Cape, you give up one extra prize when knocked out, and so if somehow the extra prize is not triggered because it's not by damage from an attack, then that's good for the person playing it. But if your opponent's able to get around the Liz Pro, that's really it's not really bad, but it's bad. So do keep that in mind. They could turn off the tool, but then of course they could also knock you out through the effect of some attack or poison or burn or something like that. So do keep that in mind. That's not something that's really important post rotation, but it's something that I think a lot of people aren't super aware of. I've said it a few times on the channel though, so if you watch my channel a little while, you probably are aware of this. But still, Liz Pearl's played a bunch. It's played in, oh, that took a while to load. But just looking at some decks, unfortunately, I cannot sort by the deck type, but we can see it in some Dragapult EX base decks. We see it even in a Charizard EX deck. I don't know exactly what this is. I guess it's just a tech option here, which is kind of interesting. And this Charizard EX deck definitely plays some interesting cards here, but that's not super normal. But you see it in Gardevoir EX, and you see it in various different decks where, well, I guess you have it Dragapult EX, which plays Psychic Energy, so it's nice there for the mirror, and then it's also there for in Metagross and Metagross EX, which can power up Psychic Pokemon. It's a solid attacking option. I covered that, I believe, in a video yesterday. Or Steven's Metagross EX, I should clarify. That will not be out for a little while as well, if you're wondering about that. And then there is also the deck, which is like based around those Clefairy EX. If you're seeing these Ogerpon, various Ogerpons, and like Noctowls, and um, of course the Clefairy EX as well, then that will be the I've called the deck, and I have some other data and a spreadsheet, which my for my personal data recording, I called the deck, I believe, Lillie's Ogerpon Box. Some people have called it Noctowl Terra Box, I think is what Limitless calls it. Um, yeah, it's pretty interesting. It's the deck I guess I'm most excited for, or probably second most excited for. Feraligator's really cool, and then this deck's cool, and then Zoroark EX to me is also pretty cool. There's a bunch of cool decks, but anyways, this deck is pretty interesting, pretty good. In my opinion, as you have Liz Clefairy EX and TLMS Ogerpon EX to move the energy to it to power it up, as well as Crispin. Oh, it's the Ogre's Mask, one of my favorite cards as well. Oh, I don't know if it's favorite, but it's a card that's cool that no one really plays very often yet, though they will in the future, maybe. But anyways, this deck is really solid. I'd say it's the new Terapagos EX deck. Terapagos EX is sometimes played in this deck, though it's not always played in it. It's fine here, but this deck, you have all basic Pokemon. You have a few different attacking options, and you have some combo pieces to get set up. And so I'd say it's a similar style deck. You have a bunch of basics. You're all basics, and I think it's the most similar deck, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't played with it. I can't, obviously. Lily's Clefairy EX isn't out. I could play a deck similar, but regardless, I think this deck's cool. And if you are a fan of Cloth Trapghost, that deck's really like unplayable post. I don't know if it's quite unplayable post rotation, but it's pretty bad, as you are going to be losing double Turbo Energy, which is the heart of the deck. So this is the deck. One of the I'd say it's a solid deck. I'd say it's like a top 10 deck post rotation, but like on the lower end of that, you could say it's not in as well, and I'd understand that. But it's a deck that this is not the best deck. I said Liz Clefairy X is the most played Pokemon. This is not like the most played deck of the new decks. And it's not like clearly that. I don't actually remember. It's close to the other trainers Pokemon and some other stuff. And then it's been played in other things. Apparently, Flareon EX, Sylveon EX have not really been paying attention to this deck, to be honest, really at all. I have no idea if this deck's good or like I think it's okay. Flareon EX is fine. I'd say this is like a fringe top 10 deck. I think the data says that it is. I don't remember, but it's fine. Yeah, it's a fine deck. And on a similar caliber actually to the Lily's Clefairy box deck. And then it's been played in lots of various different decks that can, you can slot it in. We've seen like the Skoldengo deck, um, and Gardevoir, and these decks aren't necessarily playing Liz Pearl and not necessarily attacking with Liz Clefairy EX very much, if at all. But it's a nice little threatening option, and if you are attacking with it, you can still attack with it. But also be using, just using it situationally. So it's an interesting card that's pretty versatile. Also with the other Lily's cards, none of them have really seen play at all, I don't think. If so, like essentially none. So Liz Clefairy X though is probably the best card. It very well may be the best card in the set. But let's move on to the next set of cards, which are, um, I guess we'll talk about the Ends Pokemon. We got Enzoric EX. There's not too much to say about them, but you have Enzoric EX played 130 times, as well as Enstar Manitan coming in pretty close. Ends BP Up, Ends Reshiram, Ends Castle. Yeah, those pieces which are played a bunch. Enzoric EX, if you don't know what it does, not going to talk about this one very much, but you discard one, draw two, and then your attack here says you choose one of your benched Ends Pokemon's attacks and copy it. Enstar Manitan is played. And then Enzoric EX can be, the main attacker is Enstar Manitan. Ends Reshiram is also solid. And Ends PV Up is how you power up the Ends Pokemon, specifically Enzoric EX, though it could be used for other Ends Pokemon. And then Ends Castle gives you free retreat, which is nice as well. Well, your Ends Pokemon, of course. And Enstar Manitan here can do 30 for each basic energy in your opponent's discard, which is fine. And then this attack here called Daruma Cannon, which I've seen translated as Darmanic Cannon, which I think is funnier, so I'll say that. Then you do 90, and then 90 Snipe, and you discard all energy from this Pokemon. Again, you can copy it with Enzoric EX. And then Ends Reshiram, you do 20 for each damage counter on this Pokemon, or 170, presumably copying it with Enzoric EX. Again, this set, I've said this once or twice as well, this set is a bunch of Pokemon that are really good for Regidrago V-Star, except it's rotating, so that's either really you're either really happy about that, because I know some people are kind of frustrated with Regidrago V-Star. I feel like it's like good, but it's not like game defining good. I mean, it's good, but anyways, we won't have to worry about that. But you also won't get to do that except for an expanded. But Ends Darmanitan has been played in other decks. You can see it in a few different decks. It's mostly played within Enzoric EX, but we see it in like this weird like Dusknoir box style deck where you have a spread attacking option which can allow you to kind of sweep your opponent's board. I guess that's actually very uncommon. But then Enzoric EX can also be played separately from the end stuff for its draw ability, as we are losing a lot of cards like it, like Curly and Light. I mean, like pretty much all the cards like it. The stage 1 draw engines are rotating. Again, this also is not very common. You can see it in like Gardevoir EX or Serial GX or a few different decks, though again, that's also pretty uncommon. The end stuff is solid, played again 130 times or somewhere around there, so it's fine. I don't think any of the other ends Pokemon have really seen play. End Sigilyph has seen a little bit of play. Ends Purloin, just a very few people have played it. One person played Ends Joltik, so that's not going to be something you're really thinking about too much. It's those core pieces plus the trainers and speed you have to accelerate, and Ends Castle to allow you to get free retreat. Then there is the Iono. There's the stadium here, Laventia, I think is how it's pronounced. I don't know. I've pronounced it differently in every video. I don't play the video game, by the way. If you're wondering why I like don't know any of these places, that's why. But this is the trainer or the stadium to go with the Iono's Pokemon. I believe it is the only Iono's based trainer, but it doesn't have to be played with that, and it's been played outside of that. This is actually the third most played card from the set at 157 plays, and it says once during your turn, that player may put each player's turn, they may put up to 2 basic lightning energy cards from the discard pile back into their hand. And this has been played mostly in Goldengo, I think. Well, as well as, of course, the Iono stuff itself. But outside of that, it's been played in Goldengo, and it's been played in Iono stuff has been played around 50 times, just taking a look at the data here. So we see it. Oh, and Raging Bolt, someone played it, but it's mostly Goldengo and some Ionos. And yeah, a little bit of Raging Bolt. Well, Raging Bolt also has been played with Iono stuff specifically as well, but Again, mostly Golden Go. It's really solid as an addition to that deck to allow you to just kind of attack a bit more consistently. It's not absolutely insane, but it's fine. It's a solid addition. So that is something, if you're a Golden Go player, to consider. But then the Iono stuff as well, which is the fourth best of the trainers Pokemon. We'll get to Hops in just a moment. But you have the Iono's Voltorb, which is an attacking option, Iono's Belly Bolt, which allows you to accelerate as much energy as you want, and Iono's to your Iono's Pokemon and Lightning Energy. And Iono's Kilowattrel, which says once during your turn you discard a Lightning Energy from this Pokemon. If you do, you get to draw till you have 6 cards in hand, which is a solid Pokemon. Again, played with the Iono stuff, and also the Iono stuff has been played with Raging Bolt EX. If you actually have not seen decks like that, they're not super good. I mean, Iono's is definitely the weakest of the 4 trainers, in my opinion, outside of like Laventia, which is a solid card. I mean, it's a pretty good card from the set. Not insane, but good. And this is what the decks are looking like. It's mostly Iono stuff. You don't have like Ogre Pond EX or anything like that that we get the energies on to. Raging Bolt EX is, of course, still Professor Saw's Vitality, but then from there, you're just getting a bunch of Lightning energies on, which you want to discard, and you have other attacking options, I guess, with the Iono's Voltorb and Iono's Belly Bolt EX or Iono's Kilowattrel if you want to. I feel like they're not very good, but they are attacking options there. If you need them and you're kind of TM Evolution based and like Ultra Ball based, you're not really attacking turn 1 with Raging Bolt EX, I don't think, but it's fine. I don't know. I don't think it's super good. This one is not a top 10 deck. Maybe a top 15 deck, maybe not even a top 15 deck, but it's fine. It's definitely playable. Then the last of the trainers obviously is Hop with the Hops Pokemon, and Hops I think are the one that's gotten the most hype. This is a little bit below the end stuff. It's like very close. The Hops Zacian EX is tied with Hops Kermit EX, but they have not been played in all the same stuff. Zacian EX is a Pokemon that does 240 for 4, then 30 on your opponent's benched Pokemon. It's been played in Archaludon EX a bunch as well. Archaludon EX has actually also played the other Zacian EX, or the actual Zacian EX, that's decks, not cards. The Zacian EX is a card. I believe this card is not coming out in the next set, which is a bit unfortunate. I mean, I'd like the cards closer to when Japan gets them. But yeah, I believe it's not coming out. It's been played in Archaludon some. It's fine. These are different cards. They look, kind of similar to each other, but they are different. They're not actually that different. I mean, the ones that famous Pokemon, but anyways, they are 2 separate cards, so do keep that in mind. But Zacian EX is solid. Its attack's not super good. 30 and 30 is not super good for 1. It's okay. And 240 for 4 is, again, not super amazing, but it is more damage than you are doing with the other Archaludon pieces, because you have Archaludon EX itself, which is doing 220. I guess that's the other piece, right? So, you don't have the Origin Form Dialga V-Star, which is a card that I guess I'm happy is rotating. It's fine. I know some people love it a lot, but not my favorite. We see Monkey Dory in this list as well, and then we see the other Hop stuff, which is generally tossed in these decks as well, but not always. Hop's Kermit we'll cover later, I guess, but Hop's so nice, buster damage by 30. Hop's Bag searches for basic Hops Pokemon, which is just an item card. Hops, Post-Wick the Stadium buffs your damage output on your Hops Pokemon by 30 as well. Just like Snorlax, they don't stack. Like, you can't stack multiple Snorlaxes, but the Snorlax buff and the Hops, and the Post-Wick buff, as well as the Hops Choice Band buff, boost your damage by 30 each. And those will stack, so you can do an extra 90. It's not like free, but it is not super hard to pull off either. And then Hops Choice Band reduces your attack cost to Hops Pokemon by 1 colorless, not by 1 of any type, but 1 colorless, which is really good, allowing you to attack easier and more efficiently with Hops Zacian EX. So you have actually a really strong attacker here, hitting maybe even 330, which is a really good damage output. Again, some Archaludon lists are just taking in 1 Hops Zacian EX or something like that, but a lot are putting in a bunch or like 2 and a bunch of Hops pieces. And then we also see the Hops. I believe that's the last Hops piece outside of the Hops Scramment. This card is also really cool in my opinion. This has been played in a bunch of different things. Again, Hops Zacian EX has really been played within Archaludon EX and within its own style of deck, where you can see it played with a lot of these Pokemon like Hops Crammer and Hops Snorlax, obviously, it's played with those. We could play it with Dusclops, Zacian and EX. Not really sure what's going on here. But you see some different builds to be a bit more like Turbo-y. Charizard EX. Yeah, there are some builds which are playing. This is like not something I've seen a ton, but there are some decks, and I've seen a few of these where they're just using the first attack on Hop Zacian EX as this like minor snipe and pretty cheap, efficient attacker here with Top Choice Band Postwick and Hop Snorlax to be doing solid damage and not playing any Metal Energy, which is, I think that's pretty interesting. And then it's been played again with just different things. It's been played in the Tang as well some. The Matang build isn't super common and it's not super good either, but it is a thing floating around there. And then Hops Cramorant is a card that does 120 for one colorless. If your opponent has exactly 3 or 4 prizes remaining, this is, 120 for one is solid. You look at cards like Fan Rotom, or maybe the previous Cramorant, right, which is kind of similar to, and this is actually very heavily based on Buzzwole from what says Buzzwole from, and it's not there. Let's look at it in English. Buzzwole from Forbidden Light. That's what I was gonna say. Wasn't sure if it was right, but anyways, yeah, it's very similar to that. The hop stuff's actually pretty based on that Buzzwole Lycanroc style like deck, which has been played with different things. But anyways, this card is kind of similar. There are differences. I've talked about them, but anyways, it's an attacker that's solid, able to do a little bit of damage, which is a bit more than just chip damage like how Sasha and EX is doing, especially with the buffs, and it's pretty cheap and stuff like that. So Hop Screamer is a really, really solid card in various different decks, and this card has been played in, as I said, some different decks, mostly the Hop stuff, but also within, you can put it within any deck. There are some Frostlass decks which are playing it. They're a little hard to find. Frostlass isn't like super good. It's definitely still cool. I think Frostlass is cool. I know a lot. I think a lot of people like Frostlass. It's not super good, but there are some decks which are playing some different Pokemon. You see Badoo, you see Frostlass, you see Monkey. Nothing too crazy here, but the Hopscarmon is a nice little addition there. And then that's it for the trainers Pokemon, I believe. I hope I didn't miss any. I mean, I'm sure I missed some that I didn't talk about because they're kind of bad. But those are all the ones that are meaningful, in my opinion. And looking at data, oh, Hops Double as well. Hops Double has been played some. It's been played a bit less. It's been played 33 times. It looks like within Hops decks like playing Hops Bag, but it can be played anywhere. It's a Gust on play. I think it's like solid if you want this. I mean, it's a solid card on play, Gust effect from your hand. Um, it's not like super hard to search out, but it's not super easy either to find this card when you need it. But it is nice and allows you to Gust without playing your supporter for the turn. But of course, there are cards like Counter Catcher, Pokemon Catcher, Prime Catcher, which allow you to do that as well as stuff like Iron Bundle and just things like that. So Hop Stubble is a card that is it's good. It's not super highly played or super broken, but it is a cool little card here. And then we also see um the I'm looking to see if there are any other trainers Pokemon that I missed. I don't think so. There are some. I mentioned the End Pokemon. There are yeah, that looks like about it for the trainers Pokemon, which, as I said, are the bulk of the Pokemon. There are some other cards that are played some as well, though. I think there's like 4 or 5, maybe 6. So we have I'll just go down through the set. We have the Maractus, which is a Gust. I actually made a video that was like talking about this. I said it's kind of like Snorlax. So I was like confused by that. I mean, its attacks like the same as Snorlax's ability. It's not exactly the same, and functionally it serves a bit of a different role, but it's not like completely different either. It's a card that's a trapping option. It's kind of like Mawile. I'd say it's more similar to Mawile. In some ways, I think it'll even play kind of like Druddigon from Pocket if you play that, and you're also playing the regular TCG. It's a Pokemon that can kind of buy some time and set up damage and stuff like that. It's nothing too crazy, but it's solid. Then we also have the Magmortar, more specifically the Volcanion EX. It's kind of like Iron Valiant EX. It poison or burns if it's in the active. This doesn't stack like Iron Valiant EX. We can kind of just send it up and get a little extra damage on a basic Pokemon, assuming you have a pivot option. You don't need a double switch, it's just a single switch, but it is a really, really solid, you know, thing going on here. And then we have the Just flipping through the set. A lot of these cards are, of course, not super good. Mamoswine EX is okay. I've heard so many people saying this is like amazing. It's not amazing. I just want to, temper people's expectations. This card's okay. It's not that good. I've heard a few people say it's broken. It's a card I think um, it's okay, right? It's fine. You search for a Pokemon every turn, which is nice. An ability like this in a basic would be just stupid broken. It's on a stage 2 though. And then what your attack is 180 for 2 fighting, and then 40 more for each your bench stage 2. So if you have a bunch of stage 2s, it's really strong. It's high HP, but it's not super easy to pay. I mentioned Mamoswine EX earlier with Blaziken EX. There are like different ways to pay it. You have the other one being Garganacl, which is actually like very functionally similar to Pidgeot EX. Um, and so that's cool. I guess it's fine. It's not gonna be a meta deck. I'd say this one's more like a top. It's like a top 20 maybe deck. I don't remember exactly, but it's okay. It's certainly not a super good deck, but it's fine. Then we have and of course like the Pilot One, the Piloswine and the Swinub are also, they've been played some. There is the Lycanroc. This hasn't been played that much. It's been played a few times. It accelerates Spike Energy and does some damage. It's a mediocre single prize attacker, though legitimately okay. Like, it's not bad. This card, I think, has not been getting much talk really at all, and it's okay. This is, honestly, in my opinion, better than Mamoswine EX. It's not amazing, but it's okay. And Spike Energy says when you're hit into, you do 20 tier points active. Again, similar to Maractus or Dredgen for Pocket. And this card has seen a little bit of play. It would be really good with Lugia if Lugia was not rotating, or Archeop specifically, I guess. And we've seen this in Iron Thorns EX here, I guess, and Dragapult EX with Lycanroc and a few different things. It's fine. It's not an amazing special energy, but it's okay. It's seen a little bit of play with Lycanroc and without it. There was Tyranitar. It's an item lock, stage 2 if it's in the active. This one's pretty disruptive. This one I'd say is also solid. It's a single prize. Its damage output isn't particularly amazing. Like, its attacks, whatever. It's not bad, but it's not that good either. And then your ability obviously is good because it is something that allows you to really shut down your opponent. However, if they are able to play Boss's Orders or something else to get your Tyranitar out of the active, all your Tyranitars out of the active. If you have multiple, Iron Bundle will not do it, but if you have just one, then it will. But if they're able to do that, then they will have items reopened up to them, and in that situation, then they can just play other items, and if you're playing item lock and you drop item lock for even a second, then your opponent can just play all their items, and then you've lost a lot of the value. It's not like it wasn't worth it at all, but it's whatever. If you're going for an item block focused deck, but Tyranitar's okay. Might be really good, honestly. I think it's a pretty solid Pokemon. There's Magearna. Magearna's actually really cool. It's really cool for alternate formats as well, or less competitive formats. But because of its attack, 20 draw 2's like fine. But Magearna's auto heal ability says as long as it's in the active, whenever an energy is attached from your hand to one of your Pokemon, heal 90 from it. So you can attach to your bench. It has some weird use cases. I think it's been in like Raging Bolt. We see it in the decks that can accelerate energy a little bit. It's weird. It's niche, but it's kind of fun. Don't know the use cases of it, but it's kind of cool and kind of weird. I think a lot of people, or at least a bunch of people, don't really know too much about this card, so I just didn't really know it existed. So I figured I'd bring it to people's attention, and it's okay. Not super good. Salamence TX, I guess, has been played by like one person or something like that, so that's fine. It would be really good Veggie Draco. It does 50 spread or 300, but yeah, it's whatever. And then the last good Pokemon from the set is going to be the Dudunsparce EX. Of course, Dudunsparce is a really solid evolution line. I said there are a lot of Stage 1 evolution draw engine Pokemon that are rotating. You have, Bibarel, Kirlia, Liepard, um, that might be about it, but those are all solid. I mean, Liepard isn't that good. Curly's played in Gardevoir, and Liepard and Curly are kind of the same. But anyways, they're solid, and I think they'd see play if they weren't rotating. And then same thing with the Barrel. The Barrel is definitely solid as well. Again, not super play cards, but if you do want to play something like that, Dudunsparce is an alternate option. Dudunsparce is a Pokemon, of course, that is really weird. Its ability says you draw 3 and then shuffle this Pokemon all cards attached into your deck. But then Dudunsparce EX is an attacking option in decks that are playing it. The Dunsparce EX is not super good. The second attack is 150 and a wall breaker effect, which is as in it hits two effects of attack or any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon, which is okay. A little niche, but it's fine. There are times when it could win you game again, pretty niche. And then it's also pretty niche because Dudunsparce itself has an attack which would presumably go through Mimikyu and do what you need. But anyways, then you have Adversarial Tail is the translation here. 60 for each of your opponent's Pokemon EX in play. This is solid. It's probably not doing enough to like take knockouts, but it might sometimes, and so it's a nice little option here. It's probably not enough to get knockouts. It probably is a good chance to get knocked out in return, so it's not particularly good. It's a bit niche, but it's okay. I mean, as a one-of inclusion where it can be really nice in certain situations, it's good. Also, evolving it means that now you've lost a regular Dunsparce, which cannot become a regular Dudunsparce because it's stuck in play as a Dudunsparce EX. So that's something to consider and keep in mind. But there are a few times when it is really nice as well. Then there are a few trainers. There is I don't think anyone's played Ruffian. No, a few people have. It's a disruptive supporter. It's pretty mediocre, but anyways, what's this? Brock's training, I think, which is search for two basics or an evolution. Put into your hand to see some play, as well as Iris's Fighting Spirit, which says discard a card from your hand, draw till you have 6. These are very mediocre cards. And then Exchange Ticket as well as a trainer that's seen play. Exchange Ticket is actually really interesting, very different from Brock's Scouting and Iris's Fighting Spirit, but it says you count your prizes, shuffle them, put them on the bottom of your deck, then take that many cards from the top of your deck and put them face down into your prizes. Theoretically, you could kind of control this, but that's not really going to be the idea here. But this does allow you to get cards out of your prizes. It's like way worse than Hisuian and Heavy Ball, which is the cards I'm most similar to, but if you really need to get certain stuff out of the prizes, it's really important, and it's the only way to do it. So it's played some. And then Brock Scouting is the supporter that's been played some. Same thing with Iris's Fighting Spirit. They're, I'd say, tier 2 supporters. At some point, I'm going to make a video talking about the more mediocre supporters that are okay. You could get value out of them. Recently, I was playing a deck with Kamado. Was it good? No, probably wasn't like worth it over Iono in the deck, which is what I did. I played 2 Ionos and 2 Kamados, which is rotating, by the way. But it was solid in the deck. It had legitimate use cases as a supporter. That was like a different professor's research, and there are a bunch of supporters like that. Brock's Scouting or whatever it's called, and Iris's Fighting Spirit. Also, trainer card names like might be wrong if you didn't know. The effects are going to be right, but yeah, these are fine. They're solid. They're not amazing. Searching for Rant 2 basics or one evolution is okay. It's not great, but there are times when it's nice, and it gets a little bit of versatility. And Iris's Fighting Spirit being a mediocre draw card is fine. Again, a little niche, but there are times when it would be really good and the best supporter for you to play, and then there are times when it's just okay. But anyways, tell me down below. And wait a second, there's also I just saw Tapu Koko EX. I think Tapu. Oh, this isn't that Tapu Koko EX. There's a new Tapu Koko EX as well that I believe is coming out. This card's mediocre. It's like kind of sort of a replacement for Raikou. Apparently, it's been played in a bunch of random decks. But anyways, or in a bunch of Flareon EX actually is a pivot that can attack. But this is a card that I think is coming out in the next set. I think it's the third best card from the starter decks, fourth best card or fifth from what would have been Prismatic Evolutions. It's obviously not out yet, but anyways, there are a bunch of really cool cards in the set. Tell me down below in the comments what you're most excited for. I'm really excited for these cards, really excited for rotation as well. But I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all that good stuff. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.